Hey, Slapdog! The Brainiacs are ready.
Welcome into LeatherBrainz. Your host here, Slapdog, and it is good to be back. I'm not alone. I got my boy, Alan Casanova Castro. Alan, it's a pleasure to have you here today. It's been quite the journey this entire season where inevitably one of us misses an episode every single time, and today Scotty has taken his turn missing the show, so it's just you and I, but I'm nonetheless excited to chat with you about football. I got to watch football this week, which was very exciting for me because there are some weeks where unfortunately I have not been able to do so. So the Bears, they're still the Bears. The Bears be the Bears. Jameis Winston he's the greatest of all time. I love Jameis Winston, and so we're going to talk about him. And the Chiefs, are they crumbling? Question mark. There's a lot to talk about this week, but before we do any of that, I have to give a shout out to our sponsor, Erica's Healthy Pet. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to tell you right now, we have been telling you all season long, you need to go check out ericashealthypet.com to find all of your needs for your loved animals. Whether it be cheesy bites, turkey jerky, beef liver chews, which smell terrible, but my dogs do love them, sweet potato chips, and so much more. If you go to Erica's Healthy Pet right now, right this very moment, and use code LB20, you're going to get 20% off your order. Go check out ericashealthypet.com and use code LB20 for 20% off your order. If you're looking for a way to support the podcast, the entire LeatherBrainz organization, there is no better way to do it than go check out ericashealthypet.com. Can't say it enough. And let's jump into Week 12 review, Alan. It's time.
Let's do it, baby.
It is this. This was a good week of football, and I want to start by talking about some things that did not happen on the gridiron. Namely, Mr. Daniel Jones is on the move. So last week it was announced that Daniel Jones was being benched, and it was kind of a shock for everybody. But not only was he being benched, but the Giants were going to start Tommy Cutlets as their QB1, which was kind of interesting because Drew Lock was listed as the QB2 on the depth chart. So they kind of jumped over Drew Lock, made Tommy DeVito the starting quarterback, and then Daniel Jones was asked to be released from the team, which they granted. So Monday, which is today, the day that we are recording is Monday. So by now he could have found a new home, but he will clear waivers. He has cleared waivers by this point, and now we're just waiting to see where he might land. So there's a couple things that I really want to touch on here with this entire situation. First and foremost, perhaps Daniel Jones maybe wasn't the problem with the Giants. I mean, the Giants played the Bucs, and the Giants lost 7-30. So what was your thoughts on this game without Daniel Jones?
I think it comes down to a few things. One, the continuity of a team. Most people think it's addition by subtraction. You get rid of a really bad quarterback, you think things are going to automatically be better, and that's never the case. I think if you even look at what happened to the Cowboys this week, where Dak goes down, they bring in a new quarterback, it doesn't look good the first week, and then you look at what happened this week, and a little bit it could be opponent and how the way they were trending. They still just didn't look good. There's still just no identity with the Giants. Some players are not happy with the way things looked. I think Daniel Jones, I think in the long run, this is a good move for the Giants, obviously. Daniel Jones wasn't the answer. And I think we knew this, 2 years ago?
Yeah, something like that.
Isn't that weird?
Aside from the 1 year that he did really well. And then
even then,
even
then people were just like, I don't know if you need to, they didn't really have any of their options, but they're like, this just as a long-term move does not seem right. And the NFL is so reactionary like that, where somebody has a really good year and then you have to pay them and then they fall off. And it's like, yeah, that's how it works. Very rarely do people sustain high levels of success for very, very long. And Daniel Jones had 1 year to show that he did anything. And I think it's going to be fine in the long run for the Giants. Fine being they should hopefully be better than before, but I don't know. I think that front office is a mess. I wouldn't trust. I think my issue is with the front office, not with the quarterback. I think Daniel Jones was doing what he could do, but I think the problem is more with the front office than anything else.
Well, and this is kind of an interesting thing that happened is after this game where the Giants got completely blown out. there were reporters in the locker room talking to Malik Neighbors, and he was, they were asking him, what his thoughts were, and he seemed incredibly frustrated. And he said it sure wasn't the quarterback play. Like he said, it's not the quarterback. He goes, it wasn't DJ, referring to Daniel Jones. So while I don't know if I necessarily agree with that, because if you took a competent quarterback and put him here, I think you're going to get a different or a more favorable outlook as far as the game script. What do you think Malik Neighbors was referring to? If Malik Neighbors thinks Daniel Jones wasn't the problem, then what is the problem? And obviously Malik Neighbors is a rookie, so can we even sit here and say he knows what he's talking about? He knows exactly what's going on. He's a man that is worth our attention. And that's not to say he's not a great wide receiver, but what could he have been alluding to, do you think?
Yeah, it's got to be the coaches, and I don't know if that's a direct shot at Dable. I don't know if he's frustrated with him and tired with him. Could be the whole coaching staff. I don't know. That's a tough look. He definitely was talking about the coaches though, because they were very specifically talking about the play on the field, which the front office doesn't necessarily contribute to. They're not out there in the X's and O's and in the meeting room. I think that's the other thing that we as fans, we don't get to see, is that we see the one day output of what's going on, and then we can poke and prod and try to understand what's wrong with it. These players are there obviously every day. They're around each other. They're around the coaches. They know what's wrong. Like they can only say so many things within the confines of their walls to be able to make any change. But I think he's very frustrated, very obviously, with the coaches. And I don't know if that's specifically with Dable or all of them, but I think he's just frustrated with overall. I don't think the game plan's working. I don't think they have an identity. I don't think they know what they want to get done. I think they're just trying things. And if you have somebody like Malik Neighbors on your roster, one would think, let's make a concerted effort to get him the ball in some way. Be creative with it. You look at how some teams get players involved, and it's never just you run a post route and we'll try to hit you. Sometimes it's like, let's line you up in the backfield. Let's give you a screen here. Let's do this. Let's do things to get you the ball so that way you can have an impact on the game. And I think that's ultimately what he's frustrated with. I don't think the coaches are giving him a chance to have an impact in the game. I think what he's alluding to is it's not DJ's fault. I guarantee the game plan was like, hey, drop back and see what happens and see who's open and try to deliver on the ball. I don't think they're being creative with giving their playmakers the ball. And I think that's ultimately what's frustrating Neighbors overall, which, I would be frustrated too if I knew I was.
Yeah.
He is the best weapon they have right now. Their other best weapon they could have had is probably having an MVP season, which we'll talk about later, but that's what the Giants have right now. They have.
And
that's it.
Exactly. And it's like, why not do exactly what you just stated, is get creative in trying to get him the ball, get creative in trying to jumpstart this lackluster offense to try and do something to win a game. Mm-hmm. But there's a couple things that kind of have crossed my mind is I think the Giants, bringing Tommy Cutlets out, I think was kind of alluding to the fact that the season's over. Like, why would you not put Drew Lock? If Drew Lock was listed as your QB2 all year long and you benched Daniel Jones, why would you not roll out Drew Lock? I think it's because they actively want to lose. I think that's kind of where they're at, is that they want to lose, which is so hard to sit here and say. And no coach is ever going to come out and say, yeah, we're trying to tank. But why would you not? If you truly believed that Drew Lock was your QB2 all year long, why are you going to roll out your QB3 after making a quarterback change? And unless they really did think Tommy Cutlets was better than Drew Lock, which I don't believe. But then why? I mean, that's the question at hand, is why would you do that? And I think it's because they're kind of saying, you know what, let's just throw him out there and let's just ride this out the rest of the season. Let's try and get a favorable draft pick to try and get ourselves a quarterback, which I think is exactly what they're trying to do, because they just cut their QB1.
Yeah, it's interesting because I don't think the coaches are playing it that way. And I don't know what they're thinking, because I agree with you. I think Drew Lock would be the way better option over Tommy DeVito.
Maybe
time we see him is like in emergency situations, or there's seasons in the shitter, and then we get this guy coming out and we're like, oh yeah,
maybe it's job security. Maybe it's job security, where the GM said, hey, Dable, you want to keep your job? You roll out Tommy Cutlets this year. You roll out Tommy Cutlets for the rest of the season.
That could be it. Like, honestly, that's where I'm thinking. Like, because I don't think this is a through and through coach's decision, because if the coaches play to keep their job, and I don't think you put in Tommy DeVito if you're trying to keep your job. So this has to be a, hey, sorry we hosed you on the whole Daniel Jones thing and getting rid of Saquon Barkley. Let's get you a good draft pick, or let's figure this out, but let's play Tommy DeVito. I also don't know, because this also plays in, and I don't have any details of salary and whatnot. This could also be Drew Lock gets paid if he plays a portion of X portion of the snaps. So there's some finances that go involved with it too, because if it's in his contract that he gets a bonus, they obviously want to save as much money as they can. So this could easily be a financial decision as it is hey, we're trying to get a good draft pick, because they could still mess up a draft pick, which if I'm looking at this front office, it's still a possibility.
It's very likely.
But this is the part of the season where you start seeing decisions being made more financially, where you're like, okay, we see the same thing with DeAndre Hopkins and the Chiefs. Like, people are like, why aren't they playing DeAndre Hopkins? Well, it plays into what pick they give up if he plays like 60% of the snaps. So they're trying to keep his snap count a little low right now for that very reason. Because there's like, you play that cat and mouse. So that could be it, but I don't know for certain. But you definitely are not rolling out Tommy DeVito if you're trying to win a game right now. Because I would 100%. Much rather have Drew Lock, because he's a gamer. He's almost like what I thought would have been fun with the Baker Mayfield matchup is they remind me of each other. Like, they're kind of the same guy. They're like, hey, I got an arm. I can make this happen, and I don't give a shit. And that's exactly what I would have went with if I was a coach. So I think you're right. I think this is more of a front office decision of kind of tying their hands. And I'm sure the players see that too, which is maybe also something Neighbors is alluding to as well.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, I mean, Daniel Jones, by the time this episode airs, we may already have our answer, but we don't at the moment. Where does Daniel Jones go? He could be a Raider. And there's been talks of the Dolphins, Cowboys, 49ers, Vikings, Raiders. Which one do you think is the most likely scenario to play out here? Because he's going to get picked up.
Yeah, he will. I think he has options. I mean, he cleared waivers, so he has his pick of where he wants to go, which I don't know if that's like he can pick wherever he wants to go, but basically he can field the options. If I'm Daniel Jones, I'm going to go somewhere that has an established offense where I can hit the reset button, learn some things, get some snaps, retool myself to be developed, because I think that's one of the things that doesn't happen. I know Tom Brady said that very publicly a few weeks ago, like, there's no development. These guys are just coming in and they're plugging and playing. So, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised to see him, buddy up with somebody that maybe can help him and help him develop.
Like Mike McCarthy, and he does the funniest thing ever, and he goes to the Cowboys, and then the Cowboys and Giants play this week, and they play Daniel Jones against the Giants. That would be an amazing. That would make my Christmas. I don't want anything for the rest of the year if that happens. Like, that would make my life.
Yeah, that would be the greatest troll job of all time. That would honestly probably save the Cowboy season if they pulled that off, because I'd be like, all right, that was worth it.
I just looking at the landscape, I've seen the Raiders thrown around a lot. I don't see that happening, because there had already been a quarterback battle between Gardner Minshew and Aiden O'Connell, and Gardner, he broke his collarbone, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. But there's a quarterback vacancy there, and I do believe that it's going to be Aiden O'Connell, because why would they go grab Daniel Jones? Like, what purpose does that serve? The Raiders need like a long-term solution at quarterback, and I don't think they will. I think the one that stands out to me the most that is kind of interesting is perhaps the Vikings. I think the Vikings could be a really interesting grab, because, and I'm going to explain this. So J.J. McCarthy's doing really great this year, right? And you and Scotty talked last week about J.J. McCarthy, and Scotty had mentioned what I had thrown around as far as like
you mean Sam,
or
Darnold?
Not J.J. McCarthy, Sam Darnold. Excuse me.
I was like, Sam Darnold's doing. JJ's doing really good healing.
Yes, he's healing well, Wolverine-like, some would say. But Sam Darnold's doing really great this season, right? Mm-hmm. And so, can the Vikings afford to keep Sam Darnold around in the event that, there's going to be some teams that are looking for quarterbacks? He's on a 1-year deal. He's probably going to garner quite the price. And so if the Vikings go grab Daniel Jones as a backup, that's not the worst solution for them, because if they can't afford or don't want to keep Sam Darnold around, they're going to roll JJ out next year, and they'll have Daniel Jones as a competent backup. And so I kind of like the way that could play out, and the fit of that with the entire Vikings organization, because they're an established group and they do really well at the development of quarterbacks.
I could see being somewhere. I think that's where he's going to have to go. He's going to have to go somewhere where they have some identity, because he's going to need one. I don't even know what system he fits in. The only thing I thought he might be good at is being mobile, but I don't even know if that's in the cards anymore with his injury history. So I think it's looking bleak for Daniel Jones. I wouldn't be surprised if we don't see Daniel Jones. I wouldn't be surprised if we don't see him start another game, because I honestly, his greatest asset was his mobility, and I think that's kind of gone by the wayside. And so I don't know if he's just completely broken beyond repair, both mentally and physically. for some of the things. So I don't know who's going to take a risk on him, but I think he could be a very competent backup. And I think Minnesota makes good sense to have a competent backup. You have somebody in there that's at least seen and been in the fire. And then I think they can accentuate some of the things he does, because he did have that year. So physically he can do it. Can he replicate it now? Because we've seen it. It's just how likely is he to do that again, which I don't think is very. So I think that his best thing is like, let me just have a good career backup and fade off into the sunset and collect all my money.
There you go. And he did collect quite a bit of money. We're talking about Daniel Jones and the decline of his career, but let's talk about a quarterback whose career is on the up and up, and it's Bo Nix. I mean, Alan, you said this at the beginning of the year. You were kind of high on the Broncos before anybody else really saw what is now coming to fruition. The Broncos, they beat the crap. I don't want to say beat the crap out of the Raiders, but they handed it to him decently, 29-19 in this win this last week. And the Broncos are now 7-5. And Bo Nix he's looking absolutely incredible. Bless you. He's looking good. Bo Nix is looking great, and his name's being thrown around as a Rookie of the Year candidate for good reason. And as much as I hate the Broncos and I hate Sean Payton and I think he's a scumbag, maybe he was right with Bo Nix. Maybe Bo Nix should be the Rookie of the Year because he's winning games. The Broncos are winning games with a very lackluster group around Bo Nix. Like, you have Cortland Sutton, and that's really kind of about it. And they're doing really well. So let me ask you this. Are we looking at another competitor to finally enter the AFC West in this new Mahomes era as somebody that is going to start challenging the Chiefs potentially?
I don't know. I still think that's the Chargers. I still think they are probably. I think they're still number 2 in that. I think to me, Harbaugh tips the scales because he knows how to get a team to play well for a consistent, for a long period of time. I mean, look at what they're doing this year. We'll see on Bo Nix. I'm happy that things are playing out they did just for my prognostication standpoint, because I was able to see some of the things that the Broncos were doing and how they could play. We knew that they were a quarterback away last year. I think they largely felt that way as a fan base, and Bo Nix has given them a shot in the arm. Like it's a team game, and the game feels different when you start believing in the quarterback that can produce. And the Broncos are starting to believe that he can actually produce when they need it. They should have beaten the Chiefs. They would have been, obviously they would have beaten the Raiders. They should, be 8-4 by all counts, if things would have shaken out their way. But we'll see, because if you look at the flip side of sophomore slumps, you see what's happening to CJ Stroud. And I think many people coming into this year would have been like, hey, CJ Stroud, man, is he a dark horse MVP candidate? Are the Texans going to be favorites in the AFC? And you look at the year they're having, and I know some of it's injury, but a lot of it's also kind of sophomore slump. Once you get tape on a quarterback, we've said this, once you get enough tape on the quarterback and these defenses are able to figure out tendencies, the game is different. You're going to have to evolve. Every quarterback has to evolve. You look at Mahomes when he came into the NFL, lighting it on fire, 50 touchdowns, chucking it deep. What everybody do? Too high safety. Keep everything in front. You don't get to throw it deep anymore. We'll stop blitzing you. You have to figure it out. And you have to evolve. You have to. And Bo Nix next year, maybe towards the end of this year, he's going to have to evolve, because these D coordinators get paid a metric fuck ton of money to figure this out, and they always figure it out. Very rarely does a quarterback just go on a run for years and years and years without being bottled up. It just happens. And I think that's where that's going to be part 2 to this. I think he's got a great base. He can obviously chuck it and win some games. I think that the part 2 and your answer to if they can contend with the Chiefs, I think we won't be able to answer that question until next season, when we start getting into the thick of, now they've had a whole season to prepare. There's a whole season to tape to understand tendency and see where he goes. But if I'm a Broncos fan, this is way better than I thought it was going to be, right? I don't think you thought, hey, we're going to be, they're in the playoffs right now, and there's still a lot of games to be played, but did you think you're going to be a playoff team in the AFC to start the season or not? And I think this is the fun part. If you are a fan of a team on the rise, is you don't quite have all the expectation yet. It's just a lot of hope. And Bo Nix and Sean Payton are giving you a lot of hope. And then you can also play spoiler to a lot of things happening late in the season. And that's really fun. And so exciting times if you're a Broncos fan. And I think time will tell if they're truly going to be the next thing, because you'll see when you have to evolve as a quarterback.
Sure. As I mentioned earlier, Gardner Minshew, he broke his collarbone in this game. He's done for the season. Like I mentioned moments ago, I don't think Danny Dimes ends up with the Raiders. I think the Raiders are in kind of full tank mode, and also much like the Giants are looking for a quarterback. So I do think Aiden O'Connell will be rolled out to finish the season. But Bo Nix, rookie of the year. Like I do think at this current juncture, the way he's playing, I think it is definitely his to take home if he continues to play the way that he is, because he is looking phenomenal.
Yeah, I think it's him. I think it's funny how this plays out over the year, because I think for the first like 7 games, everybody would have said Jaden Daniels.
100%.
Jaden Daniels is the rookie of the year, and then they have a little bit of a slump, and now it's wait, just kidding. It's actually Bo Nix. And passing wise, really solid. I think it's his legs that are going to keep him in that, because he does give you the rushing stats, those rushing touchdowns. But I think he's got great stats for a rookie, a 24-year-old rookie. But this is probably what Sean Payton saw. You get a veteran rookie, if that makes any sense. You get a veteran rookie.
At 24 years old, you're kind of an older rookie, so it definitely plays true. We're talking about rookie of the year. You wanted to talk about MVPs. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I think. Talk about rookie of the year. I think most of the attention is now going to MVP, and I wanted to have just a quick chat about who you thought MVP is so far at this point. I think there's a couple contenders for it. I also have a hard time with MVP because it tended to just be the best quarterback on the best team, or the quarterback on the best team. That's like really what MVP talk is. I guess if you had a vote right now, rookie of the year vote goes to Bo Nix, right? That's who we think right now.
Yep, I would agree. Yes, as of this juncture, absolutely.
Who are you casting your MVP vote for? If you had to pick one, you're just like, I got to pick one guy. You just had an election. You got to put one guy in the ballot box.
I think it's got to be Saquon. I think it has to be Saquon for me. Like the Giants, you let Saquon Barkley go to your division rival, and he goes absolutely nuclear last week, in the week before, and this entire season. Saquon Barkley has been really the heart and soul of this Eagles team. And that's not to say the Eagles don't have a lot of different weapons, because they do, and that's the scary part of the Eagles is they had weapons before Saquon Barkley, but you give Saquon Barkley a competent offensive line and a good surrounding cast around him, and you get to you kind of he's the flower that you get to watch bloom, and that's what's happening. Is like, with a complete team and a really talented running back, this is what this man is capable of. And so, and that's not to take away anything from some of the quarterbacks, but as you mentioned, it is. I hate the fact that the MVP is kind of just a quarterback award, or traditionally has been over the last few years, because while I get it, and the quarterback is the most important position on the field, I think Saquon Barkley has been the most valuable player for his team since landing with the Eagles.
Yeah. I can't disagree with you. You look at where he is through 11 games. He's already over. He's about 1,400 yards rushing already. He's on pace to hit 2,000, which
insane.
You look at what Saquon's done from a rushing standpoint through his whole year. He's already eclipsed. This is his season high already. We're at 11 games. He's already at his season high.
Yeah.
And that's not even factoring in the 10 touchdowns he already has rushing. He has 2 receiving. You saw what he did last night, where he just took a game over. And I think I agree with you. I think up to this point, I think it's going to come down to Josh Allen or Saquon. And I think it's going to largely depend on, can Saquon keep up the momentum? I would have shut down the MVP talk when Saquon reverse hurdled somebody.
That was nasty.
I think if you do something that cool that they immediately put it in Madden, I think that shuts it down. You automatically get the cover of Madden that season. They delete whoever's on there and they put you on there, and then you also get the MVP, because I think what he's doing for the NFL right now is you're doing something that nobody else is doing, and we haven't seen in quite some time, from a position that many people thought was dead.
Yeah.
And I think if you look at this Eagles team and you watch the game last night, that Eagles offense didn't look spectacular at all. They were struggling to punch it in the end zone. They were struggling to convert. It looked like a grind for them against a Rams team with this roster that should have felt more like, hey, we should just beat these guys down pretty quickly. And the only reason they did pull away and run away with it was Saquon. He broke off a 70-some yard run to start the third quarter. He broke another run off late. He's converting on these screen passes. Like, he's literally the reason why the Eagles are in the position they're in. If you take him off the Eagles, they're having some other serious conversations about who is going to be
we're
their
talking
coach.
about firing Nick Sirianni. Yeah, like that's the
100%.
conversation that we're having right now. That is a conversation
100%.
we're having right now, because that's
So
a conversation we've been having before Saquon Barkley landed there and started providing them with these wins that they otherwise might not have had.
Yeah, and I think this is where MVP kind of gets, is it the most valuable? Is it the best for that year? It's kind of whatever you want to make of it. I think if there's a year for it to finally deviate, and I think if you're the NFL, not that you want to get into conspiracy, I think what a year to flip it and just be like, running backs now. Look, your running back is an MVP. Look how valuable this position can actually be. Which would also be the cherry on top for Giants fans if now the year you got rid of him, your Saquon wins. Yeah. Not only does he have a just gangster year, he wins the MVP. That would suck so hard. And so Giants, you got to just be rooting against them now.
You do, but like, God, I hope it happens, because would be the cherry on top.
Yeah, the flip side is for Josh Allen, because you look at Josh Allen, you look at the Bills fan base, they're probably like, cool, like what other quarterback is doing what he's doing? And,
Sure.
You might have some contenders in Jared Goff, which we'll talk about here a little bit later, but like you look at the QB landscape, and I think for most Bills fans, they look at Mahomes and like, oh, he's having a down year. Cool, we got this, as long as he just does what he does. And then this is the one year that a running back just goes absolutely nuke, and Josh Allen still might be looking for an MVP, which case you have to start asking yourself, is Josh Allen going to be the next Drew Brees, where he puts up amazing stats all the time but never can win an MVP? And then you start entering that territory for a fan base that's also looking for its first Super Bowl. That's a tough pill to swallow.
100%. You mentioned Patrick Mahomes. Let's talk about the Chiefs. As a resident, you and Scotty are resident Chiefs fans. Are you concerned? Are the Chiefs on the hot seat a little bit here after this game? I mean, the Chiefs played the Panthers this last week, and the Chiefs won 30-27, which was a little surprised. I mean, I was surprised by this. I think if you're a Chiefs fan, I'm sure you were surprised by this. And this game was really freaking close. The only reason that this didn't go into overtime is because Patrick Mahomes had a 30-yard run to get him in field goal range with just a few seconds left on the clock. So, and the Chiefs, they haven't looked stellar this year. You said it, Scotty said it. They have not looked like a complete team, and this game didn't do anything to qualm that conversation whatsoever. And much like you and Scotty have said in the past, the strength of this team is the defense, right? The Chiefs' defense is really the strength this year for them. And almost losing to the 3-8 Panthers can't do anything to make you feel any better, can it?
No, I think the problem was the defense this game. They couldn't. They let Bryce Young look like an MVP candidate. They were blitzing him, and he was throwing off his back foot and completing these 3rd and longs. They were executing. They were marching up and down the field. The Chiefs' defense literally could do nothing. They couldn't get any pressure. Their defense. The weakness of this Chiefs team right now is its defensive backs. They have a hard time covering anybody. They have some injury. They only have Trent McDuffie, and that's a problem for the Chiefs. For what was their strength at the beginning of the season, some injuries and whatever, teams might be figuring things out, now has turned into more of a weakness for the team. I actually don't know what to believe, because if I got this offensive production right now versus the beginning of the season defensive production, this team is unequivocally the best team in the NFL. If you look at what Patrick Mahomes has done since the trade with DeAndre Hopkins, the first 6 games, Mahomes was completing 67% of his passes, had 6 touchdowns and 8 interceptions. That's through the first 6 games. Since the trade, the last 5 games, he's completing 71% of his passes, has 12 touchdowns and 3 picks. He has completely flipped the script on his season to where now you're like, oh, wait, now they're figuring it out. And he's involving, different parts of the offense. He's involving other tight ends. That offense is now looking way different, because the Panthers, I mean, rightly so, they also couldn't do anything for the Chiefs. Chiefs just They went down and kicked field goals or scored touchdowns at will too. So yes, that game outcome wasn't what I thought it was going to be. But if you're on X at all, a lot of the Chiefs fans were like, yeah, it doesn't matter. The Chiefs always do this. For the last 4 years, they've always done this. Even the worst teams, this is just what they do. So I don't know what to think. I do think that if they play like this right now, nothing changes, they don't get any better, whatever. If they play like this right now, they are a one and done in the playoffs, without a doubt.
I am glad
Without
you
a
said
doubt.
that because I agree
They
with
are
that
one and
completely.
done.
I agree with that completely, and that's got to be somewhat alarming. But we had
I don't know if it is
conversations-
anymore.
Well, but I don't
know
either.
if it is.
I don't, and that's fair
I have
because
no idea.
we have had this conversation.
be.
We were having this conversation last year. If you go turn on the show last
Yeah.
year and listen to like right around week 10, 12, 14, like we're having this same conversation where you're like, I don't know if the Chiefs are going to get it done.
The
I don't
Chiefs
know.
lost to Aiden O'Connell on Christmas Day, and
Yeah.
it looked like they weren't even going to win the division. It looked like a long shot. They weren't. Forget the 1 seed. They looked like they weren't even going to win the division and may have to go through the wild card, and it's going to be a long shot. Like they looked on the complete outs, and that was at Christmas. That is not much further away than we are now. And
Yeah.
you look at where they ended up, and they win a Super Bowl, and you're like, how the fuck did they figure that out? Like in 2 games, they figured it out. And here we are before Thanksgiving, and we're saying the same things. And like, not because I am this just like pie in the sky Chiefs fan, because I do think there are some serious problems with this team. Like they struggle at times to just do the most simple things. They commit a lot of penalties for all the shit that Chiefs get for, they're favorite. They commit a fuck ton of penalties. Now they're all warranted. I'm not going to argue any of them that happened on Sunday were the reason why it was close and the refs were out to get them. They were being dumb. But I don't know if you fast forward what we're going to get. Like, will this team figure? Because I'll tell you what, if that defense from beginning of the season shows up with this offense right now, good luck. That's good luck. It's just
The question is,
it's going to be impossible.
And
I don't know.
Only time's going to tell.
Yep,
Only time's
I don't
going
know.
to tell.
And they're supposed to get Hollywood Brown back at Christmas as well. He's supposed to come back week 17, week 18, and he's going to be ready to go. He's already been tweeting that, he's starting to feel good. They get Pacheco back next week. They get another edge rusher back from IR. So I don't know. This team's kind of reloading at a weird time again. So the team's going to look different in a month anyway. So who freaking knows? We sit here and we try to like guess, but like right now, if I copy and paste what this team looks like right now and I put it in the playoffs right now, they are one and done.
Yeah.
Maybe they
that's
win
fair.
one game, but they're going to struggle mightily.
You're talking about one and dones. Is this the last year for Mike McCarthy, or has he been saved? Because Dallas plays the Commanders this week, and Dallas wins this game with Cooper Rush, 34-26. This was a surprising victory. The Cowboys, this game was the most absurd fourth quarter I think I've ever seen in NFL history. It was amazing. So I'm just gonna read. If anybody missed the game, I'm gonna give you.
You hate kickers.
I do, and this game was insane. So in the top of the fourth quarter, at the start of the fourth quarter of this game, the score was Dallas 13, Washington 9. Okay, this was in the start of the fourth quarter. That was the score, and I'm going to read the box score at the end. It was 34-26. Okay, so in the start of the fourth quarter, it's 13-9. with just a little over 5 minutes, shit really started hitting the fan. Dallas got a touchdown. Okay, so that was like 5 minutes and 5 seconds. Commanders then match a touchdown, and they go for 2, and they get it with 3 minutes left, and that brings the total score to 20. Dallas, Commanders 17. Cowboys then return the kickoff for a 99-yard house call right after that. So then the Commanders get the ball back, and they end up kicking a field goal, which then brings the score to 27-20. 27 Dallas, 20 Commanders with 1:40 left. Cowboys go 3 and out, and they punt with 40 seconds left. Okay, so you're giving the ball to Jaden Daniels, 40 seconds left on the clock. Commanders get the ball back. Scary Terry gets thrown a ball by Jaden Daniels for 86 yards for a touchdown. And then they miss the extra point to tie the game. Okay?
Yeah.
So what do? Well, you got damn near 30 seconds, if not less than that, on the clock. The only thing you can do is onside kick it. Commanders go to onside kick it. Cowboys not only recover the onside kick, but the onside kick that they had recovered, they ran it in for a touchdown. Absolutely fucking wild. I was watching this game and I was just screaming and yelling and jumping around at the TV the whole time, and I'm like, what is going on here? This is completely absurd. It was very high caliber at the very end. But really the question that I have for you, Alan, and this entire situation here is, I have 2 questions for you, and I'll start with this one. Our team's finally starting to figure out Jaden Daniels and the Cliff Kingsbury system. And you mentioned once when we were talking about Bo Nix, you said Once you get tape on a quarterback, it makes it a hell of a lot easier and teams start to figure it out. Jaden Daniels, at the start of this season, was Rookie of the Year. That was pretty much a lock. Everybody was saying Jaden Daniels is that Rookie of the Year. And he has started to trickle down. And it has not been a great showcase for him. And that's not to say he's a bad player by any stretch of the means. But do you think the teams are starting to kind of figure out what Jaden Daniels and Cliff Kingsbury are doing here?
It could be more of Cliff Kingsbury inability to evolve. There's obviously like more tape on him and his system, and I think this is largely what got him out of a head coaching job to begin with and why he's an OC. I don't know if maybe he's more suited for college. I don't know if people figure out what he can and can't do in the pros. And there's also just the ups and downs in the season. I don't know. Like there could just be slumping. They could just be misaligned. It could be players not blocking well or running the right route. There's a lot of things that roll into it. I don't know if this is necessarily a Jaden Daniels issue, because I think for him, it's like he doesn't know what he doesn't know yet in the NFL. Like he doesn't,
Sure.
He's still week by week, their game plan, and he's running the plays that they're called. Like he hasn't done enough self-reflection to be like, you know what, I need to do this or let's do that. And so not a lot of that happens week over week. It's more of just like kind of get back to some basic mechanics and you run the plays that are called. And I think what's shocking to me is like even in that first quarter, because I have Jaden Daniels in fantasy, and it was like first quarter was ending and he hadn't completed a pass. And I was like, what the fuck? How do you not complete? You have a rookie quarterback. How have you not given him a layup yet? The old basketball adage, like once you see one go in, it's much easier. And it's like, you went a whole quarter without seeing one being completed. Like what is this? And
what are we doing?
He made up for it with his legs, which we know he can do. But I think a lot of that has to fall on the OC and getting him lathered up and getting into a good rhythm. And they just didn't get into a rhythm until late. And then when you're playing in the NFL,
love to see him lathered up.
Pause. The in the NFL, you just the margin of error is so slim. These are all professionals. They're all playing their ass off. They're all trying to get paid. The margin of error is slim. Even going back to the Chiefs game, I get it. As a Chiefs fan, that blows that it was that close against a team that's at the bottom of the NFL. But whatever, you just kind of got to win and move on. Whether it's by 40 or by 1, it's a win, and you kind of just move on to the next one. And I think for Jaden Daniels, I think he can figure it out. I think they got to figure out ways to get him lathered up quickly. And the Cowboys were a meddling team, but they're still got talent. It's not like Micah Parsons just stopped trying. As much as we think these players just throw it in, like they're still playing for contracts. They're still playing for pride. Like this is their job. And that is kind of what you get.
So my second question on all this is, do you believe Mike McCarthy will be done by the end of the season? He will be, or after the season is over. Do you think Jerry Jones finally says, hey, this was a fun experiment. We tried it for a couple of years. It isn't what we want it to be. Wish you the best in your future, but it's not going to be here with the Cowboys.
It's sure shaping up that way, isn't it? They sit Dak down. He has this mysterious hamstring thing, which I don't know if anybody was like privy to. It's just kind of all of a sudden he had a hamstring thing and had to go have surgery on it, which I'm like, okay, that must have been really bad. Nobody saw it. I don't think there's any video, but like, okay, it happened. So it certainly sounds like they're putting all the chess pieces in a spot where they can't blame Dak. So you can't get rid of Dak because Dak's been hurt. So you got to give him another pass because he didn't get a chance to finish it out. So then the only thing left you can do is get rid of the head coach. And I think that's what Jerry Jones is setting himself up for, is to get rid of Mike McCarthy. I don't think this win, I think if you're looking for somebody that wasn't excited for this win, it was probably Jerry Jones, because he's like, God damn it. Like, I'm trying to get rid of you. I'm trying to go draft Shedeur Sanders. I'm trying to get Dion as my next head coach. And if you win these bullshit games, like, can we figure this out?
You put us in a record where it doesn't look nearly as bad as the situation that we're actually in.
I have a hard time firing you for cause now if we're pulling off these wins in the middle of the season. And Jerry Jones I think if you are in his brain, which I don't know if any of us actually want to be there, I'm not sure exactly what we'd find. I'm thinking about that. That sounds like a really good, like being John Malkovich. Have you ever seen that movie Part 2, where you just kind of like be Jerry Jones and see into his brain? I imagine there's a lot of racial slurs in Jerry Jones's brain.
And like just
he's probably thought of some
that he hasn't.
Yeah, he's probably thought of some cool shit that he can't say out loud that I'd love to hear what's in there. Just be like, that's actually pretty funny. But anyways, that being said, I think he wants to get rid of McCarthy. So I'm going to lean, yes, McCarthy's gone because Jerry generally gets his way.
Okay, I would agree with that. Let's pivot over to San Francisco. Is San Francisco in some real trouble here, Alan? This is a very interesting. Here's the
This
thing.
is part of the plan.
Is Green Bay wins this game 38-10. Okay, and we get the news middle of last week that Brock Purdy is uncertain to play due to an elbow injury. He ends up not playing. There's already news today that he's already throwing again, so he's okay. And it looks like Christian McCaffrey can't even save this team at the moment, it would seem. So the reason I asked is San Francisco in real trouble. I'm going to read the NFC standings, the NFC West standings at this moment, okay? Because largely the NFL or the NFC West is still really up for grabs. So you got the Seahawks leading the division at 6-5. The Cardinals in second place, also at 6-5. The Rams at 5-6, and the 49ers are at the bottom of the division at 5-6. Mm-hmm. For a team that most people had pegged as Super Bowl favorites to start this season, does seeing them at the bottom of the NFC West alarm you? And should 49ers fans be worried about their season being in jeopardy at this point?
I mean, the season, yeah, you can say, oh my gosh, there's still a game and a half.
They're a game away,
from being in first again and winning the division, and then you're like, okay, cool, let's see what happens in the playoffs. They're doing the thing they did a few years back where everybody got injured. They had a shit season. They get to have a really high draft pick, and they just add it and stockpile it to the amazing roster that they already have. This is exactly what they're doing again. That's why I said this is all part of the plan, baby. You go to the Super Bowl, doesn't work out. All right, have some injuries. All right, let's just tank this up. Let's get a good draft pick, and then we'll do it again next year. And I obviously tongue in cheek because I don't know if that's actually what they're trying to do, but it sure seems that way. And this is pure injury. I mean, you don't have McCaffrey for half the season. He's not in any game shape. He's not up to game speed yet. Brock Purdy goes out. You have Trent Williams out. You have Bosa out. You have guys going up and down with injuries. You lose one of your starting wide receivers to a broken leg. Was it Debo had some weird breathing thing or whatever he had going on too for a couple weeks, and it's this has just been a weird season for them to stay healthy. All their starters haven't been out there all at once.
Yeah,
not even close. So if you're a fan, you're just kind of wait, we're still a game away, and we've had how many injuries, and we have looked this bad.
That as a Cardinals fan, that's the thing that scares me the most. Is we were leading the division up until this week when the Seahawks beat us, but I was it was fool's gold. I knew it was fool's gold, and I was I'm just gonna enjoy being at the top of the division for this week, and we'll see what happens. Now, if we beat the Seahawks this week, I'd be ecstatic, but we didn't. And now I'm just there's a pretty high probability that by the end of the year, we're going to be back at the bottom of the division.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think if the 49ers get everybody back or McCaffrey, they start, they're going to figure it out. You assume they can pick this back up. But if they don't, honestly, it's uphill climb. It's hard to combat injuries. That's part of the game. War of attrition is as much of football as anything else. So for all the fans that are oh, we would be Super Bowl champs if so-and-so didn't get, a lot of people have that every year. A lot of people can stake a claim to the what if trophy that is that season, and so 49ers, I think if you're a fan, just hang in there because you haven't had everybody back and you know what your team's capable of. And it's not for lack of effort, and it's not for system. I don't think. I think it's tough. Your team hasn't had a chance to gel. You're working through the season, and it just sometimes it shakes out that way.
Well, talking about figuring things out, let's talk about the Bears because the Bears beat the Bears. They lose in overtime to the Vikings 30-27. I do too. I really do. What a brutal loss here. This was actually a really good freaking game, and the Bears, once again, they just can't finish the game. And with 1:56 left, the Bears were down 27-16. This was another game, much like the crazy end to the Commanders-Cowboys game, where shit really started hitting the fan and it got super exciting. Caleb Williams got it done. He got a touchdown. They went for 2. They got it with 22 seconds left, and then they kick the onside and they get it back, and then they kick the field goal to tie up the game. I was like, this is amazing. This is insane. It was awesome. But then they fumbled the bag in overtime. So
it was bad.
It was bad, and it sucks because I want the Bears to be good. I really do. I genuinely do. And I feel for Bears fans because there have been a couple games this year where it's you should have won it. You were right there, and you you didn't finish the game. So is it safe to say that Caleb Williams is good? And is it finally time for them to punt Eberflus and this entire coaching staff to the curb? We'll start with Caleb Williams.
Yes. Answer your question. Caleb Williams is good. He's doing it again where it's the end of the game and he's out. You can tell he's working outside of the system because he's just trying to make things happen.
Yeah.
And he puts you in a position to win yet again. This is the third game where he's put them in position. And I think the overtime was not on him. You look at the play calling they had. You look at they failed to get a call in time, which gave them a delay of game. And then that's pretty much it. And then they had to punt it away and then just pray that their defense didn't bleed away to the Vikings. And they couldn't do it. And this is 100% on the coaching staff. And I don't mean to dig up old shit. Imagine if Harbaugh was in this situation, right? Like think of how more dialed in this team would be top down on what their mission is. And honestly, from a head coach, that's what it is. Can they get everybody dialed in and rowing in the same direction to get the common goal accomplished, which is to win the game? And there's 3 phases to it. You know, it's not just on one guy. Yes, the quarterback gets all the attention because he's the trigger man and he controls the offense. I don't think Caleb Williams is the problem. I don't think he's been put in position, much like we were saying Malik Neighbors. You look at another example of where you're not putting somebody in a position to make plays or giving them what they need or lathering them up. It's the Bears. Like, I don't know what these play calls are. I don't know what they're dialing up. It's these like long developing routes for a offensive line that's bad. And how you haven't figured that out 11 games into the season and are just kind of like, well, maybe this time it'll work. It's like, no, it's not working. Your offensive line is terrible. You have to figure out a different way to get playmakers the ball that don't require on Caleb Williams dropping back and making 3 or 4 reads and then trying to distribute the ball, because that's not good for his development right now, because he's right now just looking at the rush, or he's trying to make a play because he knows it's going to falter at some point. And so when things aren't humming, it's on him. And then it's Eberflus. That, you know how I feel about Eberflus. He's got to go.
Yep.
There's going to be some interesting coaching searches happening in the off season, and I think the Bears are going to be right there with them.
So, and MK, I think, had kind of given this is, I want to say 2 weeks ago now. We had reached out. MK, he does the Fantasy Brain show for LeatherBrainz. So if you haven't checked that out, go check that out. They're doing an incredible job with all fantasy football advice. It's a great time. But we had asked him like his thoughts on the Bears loss a few weeks ago, and he had said pretty much everything that you had just said, where Caleb Williams is the real deal. We're lucky to have him. We love having him. But the coaching staff needs to go. So it begs the question, and let's just have a quick conversation about this, is like what coaches come to mind as somebody that could come in and actually try and develop Caleb Williams into a competent, good quarterback? Is I have a thought, and I've said this before, and he still stands out as one of the high up-and-comer coaches for me, is Brian Johnson.
Yeah. I think I still lean toward, I don't have an answer. That's a shit answer to give you right now, but I don't have an answer.
Vrabel?
All I know is you need somebody that has a history developing quarterbacks. The one thing you need to hang your hat on as an organization is, can they develop a quarterback
Andy
and
Reid.
Put him in the right position? Yeah, that'd be sick, actually. I would actually like to see that. There's a lot of quarterbacks I'd like to see have an Andy Reid system, but that's where you have to go. Where has somebody developed a quarterback to the point where you're like, this is the identity of the organization? What is the identity of the organization? You need to have like a very candid conversation as a staff, as an organization. What is our identity? If you look at the teams that do things well, what is their identity, right? Like, what do they do? Even the Vrabel teams, they had an identity, but I don't think it was with developing quarterbacks. That was with sound defense and running the ball and pounding. That's fine if that's what they want their identity to be, but I don't think you draft Caleb Williams because you want that to be your identity. I think the identity they want to have is their ability to distribute the ball. You look at who they brought in at wide receiver, and I think if you make those moves to bring in those playmakers and you have Caleb Williams, you have to invest in a coach that has a history of developing quarterbacks. And that could be Johnson. I don't think it's Vrabel, but whatever they do, they have to bring somebody in that they're like, okay, maybe our defense is going to be a little shitty, whatever. But like, for us as an organization, wouldn't it be cooler? Wouldn't it be fun to have an identity where we're just like taking the top off of defenses?
Gunslingers,
We're just
yeah.
like, we are out here like making plays. Like that is a much more attractive product to sell and a much better, an easier way to get somebody else to come in. And you can solve the defense later with a good coordinator, but you gotta invest in somebody that can actually develop Caleb Williams and put him in position to make plays, because that's where it starts and ends with this team. And you don't want to blow this opportunity to have somebody like Caleb Williams on your roster.
100%. And you want to play a game, Alan. So
I do want to play a game. The other side of this coin was the quarterback we have here, and you look at what Minnesota's doing, kind of playing with their food a little bit in this game. But we're gonna play a quick game, okay? I'm gonna give you some stats. It's player A, player B, and then you tell me which of those is more attractive or which one you would click on, and then I'll unveil who they are.
Okay.
Okay. Player A is thrown for 2,800 yards, has 20 touchdowns, total touchdowns, 9 interceptions. Okay.
Okay.
Player B, 2,800 yards, 2,800 and change, so about the same in yardage, has 22 total touchdowns, has 10 interceptions. The player B has a better QBR by 2. Player B has a 59 QBR. Player A has a 57 QBR. So you have 20 to touchdowns to 22 touchdowns, 9 interceptions to 10 interceptions, similar yardage thrown for. Player B has a better QBR.
I'd probably take player B.
Yeah, I think given the QBR and total touchdowns, obviously more yards, you'd want to give it to player B. Player B is actually Sam Darnold.
Okay.
Player A in this scenario was Jared Goff.
Wow.
And I think you look at the narrative of what this Vikings team is, and they say, it's not Sam Darnold. Like, Sam Darnold's stupid. He's a dum-dum. But if you look at the stats, you're like, okay, well, wait a second. He's kind of producing, and he has a pretty good, I think he has a pretty good grasp on this team. And
this
I think
just adds fuel to the fire. This just adds fuel to the fire. I do think Sam Darnold will get another. I don't think it's going to be with the Vikings, because I don't think the Vikings. I do think another team is going to pay him to come in and be their quarterback. And it's twofold, because I would take Sam Darnold. I mean, the stats don't lie, right? The stats on paper don't lie. But you look at the systems that these two quarterbacks are in. They're in really, both of them are in phenomenal systems. Like, when Jared Goff was with the Rams, and I'm not taking anything from Sean McVay away, but they traded Jared Goff to the Lions to get Matt Stafford, right? Yeah. And now you look at it, and it's like, Jared Goff is, dare I say, a good quarterback? He's playing good football.
Many people are saying he should be in consideration. Well, probably not that Houston game after he threw all those picks, but I think he was up there with MVP consideration up until that game.
And so you look at it, and it's like, this just exemplifies the argument that the system that the people are in is paramount to their success.
100%.
Because Sam 100%. Darnold, nobody, at the start of the season, before week 1, nobody was saying Sam Darnold is a good quarterback. Nobody's saying Sam Darnold's a good quarterback. We've seen Sam Darnold. I probably have said it. We've seen Sam Darnold. We know what Sam Darnold is as a product, and it's not great. And then you see what he's doing with Kevin O'Connell, and how well they're doing, and you're like, okay, maybe Sam Darnold is something. And it just goes to show that the system that these people are playing in is paramount to their success or failure.
100%. Yeah, and if somebody's going to pay Sam Darnold, they have to be okay with that fact of, like, you have to do some self-reflection on, like, all right, what is my coaching staff going to get out of him? I think the Vikings they have a great system, man. You look at what they're doing. You look at what they're doing with Kirk Cousins. You look at what they're doing with Kirk Cousins, what they did with him, and where he's at now. And I know he had the Achilles injury and whatever, but the Vikings, they seem to have a formula of what works. They know who they are. I think that's the thing you have to know with coaches. They know who the fuck they are. Vrabel, when he was coaching, he knows who he is. He knows who he's not, but he also knows who he is. And I think the Vikings know who they are. I think that's why many people love Dan Campbell as well. He knows who he is. Yeah, he knows what they're about. We're gonna punch you in the mouth.
Kneecaps, baby.
I'm gonna send 2 running backs at you. Good luck. Our defense, which if they had a healthy defense, I would 100% put them as a shoe-in to win the NFC, because that losing some key pieces on defense is gonna plague you in the playoffs, and so we'll see how that shakes out for them. But I mean, right now, I would say they're the best team in the NFL, and
I would agree.
Not because of any one person, but it's because the sum of their parts, right? And you look at the Vikings, the same thing. It's the sum of their parts leads them to the record they have and the stats that Darnold has. But I think it's really interesting, because I think if the Vikings knowing who they are and doing some self-reflection, they're going to 100%. I think they're going to walk from Darnold at some point. Like I don't think he's going to get a max because you have to know what you have. Now it'll be interesting to see who else they bring in, because that'll be a tell on how they feel about JJ's recovery, because I think Darnold's going to want some money after this season.
And he should get it from somewhere. But I think the Vikings know who they are. They drafted JJ McCarthy for a reason, and it's because they're going to want to use him, right?
Yeah.
This is not a Brock Purdy situation. This is not a 49er situation where it was Mr. Irrelevant that they grabbed as just we'll grab him just in case kind of situation, and he ends up being the guy. That's not this situation. They have a high draft pick invested in JJ McCarthy, and I know they did with Trey Lance as well. But
yep.
I do think Kevin O'Connell knows exactly what he wants to do and who they want to be, and I think JJ is going to be that guy for him. And the problem is they don't have the ability to have both Trey Lance and Brock Purdy on rookie contracts and kind of get to figure it out. The problem that they're going to run into is Sam Darnold is on a 1-year deal. Somebody's going to pay him, and the Vikings probably aren't going to pay him what he wants to get, or deservedly should be getting paid.
Yeah, no, they got to make investments in other areas of their roster, and I think
yes.
I don't think Sam Darnold gets you any closer signing him. I think you signed a guy. Like if I'm them, you got to already be thinking about, like, we got to move on from him. Good. Somebody is going to take him.
The Jets.
We go JJ, and then we figure out how to get like a veteran backup, because I think JJ is still going to need veteran presence. He's still going to need veteran presence, and he's going to need somebody that can tell him the ins and outs. Now, I don't know if Daniel Jones could give him what to do. I think Daniel Jones could give him a long fucking list of what not to do, which might be helpful depending on your perspective. But they're going to need to get somebody in there, but it's definitely not going to be Darnold. But I was reading the stats on both players, and I'm like, that's incredible. Like, yeah. I didn't think Sam Darnold statistically was that close to or better than Jared Goff. I would have thought, oh no, Jared Goff's killing it. The Lions are the best team. And then you look at the Vikings, you're like, oh wait, they're actually like 9-2, and Darnold's playing really, really well. And it's like, it's kind of incredible for a team. If you're a Vikings fan, or you followed, even the stuff before the season, like, they had a player die. They had a guy get arrested a bunch. They had guys get hurt. They lose JJ. You're like, what is this?
Season's over. Season's over.
Yeah.
Before
why
it started.
Even play it? Why even play it? And then you just look, and I think it just shows you the value of what coaching actually does for a team, and an identity actually does for a team. Because I think would you give Eberflus this Vikings team, could you imagine what it looks like? And I couldn't. I'm sure MK would love to offload Eberflus to the Vikings and let him meddle in somebody else's team. Because the flip side is if you put him with Kevin O'Connell and you gave him to the Bears, like, what do you think they look like?
Yeah,
and that's what it is right there. I think stops and ends right there. And I think the Vikings will have some decisions to make, but definitely, I mean, shout out to Darnold, kind of reinvigorating his career this year.
Yeah. I mean, it reminds me of Baker Mayfield, where it's like, Baker Mayfield 100%. Was on a downward trajectory. He lands in with the Bucs. The Bucs, in a similar vein, kind of know who they are, and you can't help but love Baker. And there's another
quarterback. I know the next quarterback's our favorite, but I do love Baker too.
I do love Baker. For me. I do love Baker, but this is my favorite probably player currently in the NFL. It's Jameis Winston, because that's what he did. He is the man. Jameis Winston is the best player in the NFL. And it's I don't mean physically. I don't mean he is the most talented quarterback in the NFL, but damn it, is he entertaining. He might be the
most self-aware quarterback, or self-aware human I've ever seen. He knows who he is. You talk about reflection. He knows who he is.
So the Browns beat the Steelers, Alan. I don't know if you knew this. The Browns, of all teams, beat the Steelers 24-19. And dude, this game was awesome. This game was incredible.
This was great.
It was so amazing. So it started with one of the trademark pregame speeches from Laser Jameis himself. I was laughing so hard when I watched that live. I actually had to pause the game, rewind it, and watch Jameis Winston again. And so it was right before the game had started. It was like a pregame interview. And you watch Jameis Winston answer these. He's not answering any of the questions that the reporters asking him. And he is big cheesing. He is so you can tell, like, he's genuinely just so happy to be there. And I'm just like, man, what a guy. Like, he was just so ecstatic. Like, you could tell he was just enjoying the moment. And it was awesome. And then it started snowing during the game, and people are calling this the Snowglobe game for good reason, because there was snow all over the ground. It was pouring snow like a mother effer, and I mean, it was just a cool game.
It was amazing.
It was a great game.
For those that maybe didn't hear it, the pregame quote, but his pregame quote was, "The horse is preparing for battle, but victory comes from the Lord." And it's like, what scene from what scene from The Gladiator did he pull that from? Because you're like, what is this dude doing? But even there, he's like, I'm just so blessed to play this game. And there's clips of him running out in the field, and he's just so happy to be there, and like genuinely knows the experience he's getting as a human being is something that others don't get. And I think it's a refreshing take for many of us, because I think if we look in our own lives, I think we get bogged down by the day-to-day, the shit we have to put up with. Oh my God, I got this thing to do tomorrow. I got this thing to do next week. And I think Jameis is a constant reminder. You just got to be thankful for where you're at, because you don't, everybody's experience is different, but you just got to be thankful. And he's certainly in a position of something to be extremely thankful of. I sent you guys the other quote, but even after the game, he's like running off the field and he's talking about Amazon. He's like, I'm about to go home and order me an Amazon dub right now. And I know it'll get there by 9:00 because Amazon is the best. And it's like, this dude, he is just having fun. And I think that's what in a sport where there's hand wringing, people get pissed off. You have, it's a macho sport, and you have a guy in here that's just like smiling and just genuinely happy to be there. It's hard not to root for him. It's hard not to root for the Browns. It's hard. I was looking at getting a Winston jersey because I'm like, this dude is just like,
he's the mantra of what, like, just like you said, like living in the moment, like being present and just enjoying it. Because it's like, for all of us, we're all failed athletes, right? Like, and probably most of the people that are interacting with us on LeatherBrainz or listening to the show or whatever, we're all failed athletes because we played the sport. We loved the sport. We obviously didn't make it to the NFL. We're not at the highest peak of performance. And for somebody to actually get there, recognize the situation they're in. Like as a rookie, yeah, you probably have a lot more of that a lot more of appreciation, but then you start to get bogged down by, this is life now. This is what this is. And to be able to constantly be a reminder to other people that, like, I'm living the dream that you all wish that you had, and not in like an arrogant way, but just like I'm getting to do this. It's just like, it brings out the kid in you a little bit.
It's amazing. And for all the shit we talk about players being in the NFL, and I think anybody listening to this or has played, pretty much everybody played sports in high school. If you look at the amount of high schoolers that actually go on to play in the NFL, it's 0.023%. So not even a percentage of high schoolers actually go play. It's, less than half of a half. And you're like, this is incredible. And I think he knows, that. I think he's grateful to be there. He made some mistakes in college, which, I mean, who didn't do dumb shit in high school and college? You point him out and I'll call him a liar if they said no, but he's been under the spotlight, and he could have gone a completely different direction of expectations of himself. And I think, honestly, if you look at what this Browns team needs, it's probably that. It's probably a lot of that. It's probably a lot of like, let's just go out there and have fun. And you could tell, like, the players were legitimately having fun playing in the snow, which is super cool. Snow games are
the best.
The GOAT. They're the GOAT. Like, that is literally the coolest thing you could ever do, is play in a snow game. And it was super sweet to see that. But I mean, I think Jameis absolutely added to it. And I honestly had forgotten that they actually won the game, because I was like so excited for the snow in the post game and pre-game speeches. I like kind of forgot that he
was like diving on after the game was over. He did all of his interviews or whatever, and then he just ran onto the field and just dove like head first and slid on the snow just like a kid. And then all like Ryan Fitzpatrick and all those guys, like, they all jumped in the snow with him, and we're all like doing little snow angels and stuff. And it's like, it was refreshing. It was cool to see. Yeah. And I do love Jameis Winston. He's what a dude. But let's go back. Let's round out this conversation here. The Browns probably aren't going to go to the playoffs this year. They're currently 3-8, but I got to ask you, Alan, are the Steelers legitimate Super Bowl contenders? Because this was a conversation that was being floated around just this last week when the Steelers were sitting at 8-2. And I'm going to read the AFC North standings at the moment. The Steelers are still leading the charge at 8-3. Right below that is the Ravens at 7-4. The Bengals, with a bunch of question marks around them, are 4-7. And then the Browns are 3-8. So are the Steelers legitimate Super Bowl contenders in your opinion?
Record says what you are. I think they have the best coach in the division, and he's got them playing really well. We always talk about Tomlin, man. He just figures out a way. And you look at this team before the season, you're like, Justin Fields, or what are they going to do with Russell Wilson? Do they trade Russell Wilson? Does Russ even play? Justin Fields looked good at the beginning of the year, and then they sit him down. And this is what we talk about from some of the other teams. And you look at Mike Tomlin. He is figuring out a way to get his playmakers the ball. He brings Justin Fields in. He knows what Justin Fields can do. Justin Fields can run the ball. And he knows that. He can throw it sometimes, but you can count on him to run on it. And he puts him in situations to be successful. And he looks like he's having a good time. He doesn't look like he's, out there like
with the Bears
in the grind. Yeah. He's out of the Eberflus suck that is. And I think they are. I mean, if people were saying the Ravens, were favorites, you got to look at Steelers in that division and say, yeah, they're contenders as well. They have to be. They may not do it the way we all want. I think that's the problem. Our expectation as like who's a contender is they're the greatest show on turf. They're scoring 50 points a game and they're only giving up 10. That's the contender. And it's like, that's not how it is anymore. The NFL's different. It's harder to score sometimes. Yes, you'll have some breakout games. It's just your record says who they are. And I think what'll be interesting is Christmas Day, the Steelers get the Chiefs, in Pittsburgh. And I think many people thought before this loss that could have been a potential 1-seed game. But I think the Steelers are for real. I don't think anybody really wants to play them at all.
I would agree with that. I don't think anybody wants to play the Steelers, but I still don't think they're going I think they're playoff bound, but I don't think they're going to make it all the way. I really don't, because if you look at the Steelers team, it's a very defensive heavy team, which is what Tomlin's doing is proving that defenses win championships, right? And I don't think they're going to win a championship this year.
Okay,
but
reframing it, because I agree with you. I don't think they're. If you gave me money to go spend and bet, I would not say they're going to go to the Super Bowl, but I do think they are. I mean, they're definitely top 4 or 3 team in the AFC, maybe, right?
Yeah.
I think that's contending. I think that's contending.
No,
I would
and
frame
I do
that as
think
contending.
I do think the Steelers are going to go to the playoffs. I do think that that's certainly going to happen. How far they go is the question at hand, because offensively, I just don't think they're strong enough to be able to compete. Defensively, their defense has kept them in. I mean, they've won multiple games this year without ever scoring a touchdown. Shout out to Chris Boswell.
Okay. Also, PTSD from that, because the Chiefs played a playoff game against the Steelers one time where it was Roethlisberger and Le'Veon and all them, and the Steelers also did not score a touchdown, and they won. And that was one of the more sadder moments in my life.
It's happened multiple times, but it's like, if you can't figure out a way to get in the end zone, you're going to have a really tough time come playoff season.
Yeah, and I like...
Because that's what you're going to have to do.
What's great about their setup of their team is it affords Russell Wilson the opportunity, much like he had with the Seahawks, where he can throw these moon balls, these 50-50 beautiful balls that he can throw up there. That sounded really sketchy. But he throws them up there, but it doesn't matter. Even if it's an arm punt, you have the defense that'll bail you out of it. Who gives a shit?
Yeah.
Take a shot. Maybe you take the top off the defense and you complete it, and now it completely flips the game around. I think the Steelers, the way they play, they complement each other in a way that affords them opportunity to beat anybody. And if they can figure out some more on offense, great. But if not, hey, you're in the AFC, you're going to be playing some cold weather games, and you're when it comes January, that's what it's about. And I think they're equipped to do it. We'll see what happens, because I think they do eventually have to figure out how to score.
Yeah.
I think they're definitely playing away. And you look, I mean, the Browns just beat them, for everything we're saying how great the Steelers are. I mean, Jameis Winston just took them out.
I mean, he's the best. So
he is the best. So I guess that's unfair. They're playing the MVP, should be MVP of the league, and it's
100%.
I guess that's what you get. But I think they're still contenders. They still have an opportunity here. The Ravens' schedule down the stretch gets even harder for them, so we'll see.
Yeah.
I think the Steelers could even just flat out win the division and call it a year for them.
I mean, in true Tomlin fashion, it wouldn't surprise me. Although they'll probably lose a couple more games throughout the season, because in true Tomlin fashion, they'll go right about 500. All right, let's go over to kickoff karaoke. So for anybody that does not know what kickoff karaoke is, I will quickly explain it. So every week, Alan, Scotty, and myself pick 4 games, and we are picking to see who can cover the spread in these 4 games. We're keeping track. We've kept track all season long, and whoever is at the bottom of this kickoff karaoke is going to have to sing the national anthem live for all of you brainiacs live over on Twitter. So the current standings are this: Scotty, is in first place. Oh my gosh, I'm gonna cough.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
Couldn't believe it.
Scotty is in first place with 27 wins. Alan, you are also tied for first place now with 27 wins. So you have quickly climbed that ladder back up, and you and Scotty are chilling, co-leading first place. And I am down here at the slums with only 20 wins. I'm going to have to start making some money moves, baby. I'm going to have to start doing some crazy stuff to try and compete with you guys, or I'm going to need y'all to fail miserably. So there's still a chance for me, but I'm 7 games behind, so got a couple weeks to make up. The games we've chosen this week are the Chargers at the Falcons, the Eagles at the Ravens, the Dolphins at the Packers, and the Rams at the Saints. Scotty is not here, but he has given us his picks. And because Scotty has been leading the charge this entire year thus far, and hopefully maybe this week will change, we're going to give his pick out first. So the Chargers at the Falcons. The Chargers are 1.5-point favorites. Scotty has taken the Falcons. Scotty's been a big fan of the Falcons all season long. He is Kyle Pitts no matter what. That train is chugging along, and ever since I have gotten back on the train, it has been nothing but misery and sadness for myself. Because Kyle, well, I said if Kyle Pitts gets 10 points consistent, that's exactly what happened. Is he literally did just enough to pull me back in. I said I'm off the train until Kyle Pitts gets 10 fantasy points consistently through 4 weeks. That's exactly what he did. And then as soon as I got back on that train, he goes, "I've done my deed. I'm done here." And now he's kind of fallen off again. But Scotty's taking the Falcons, and Scotty's been high on the Falcons all season long, which I understand. I've been excited for the Falcons as well, but it might change this week for me. So typically I will let you go first, Alan, but because I've already kind of shown my hand, I'm going to take the Chargers here. The Chargers are 1.5-point favorites. I do think Harbaugh's legit. I think part of the issue for Scotty is that he despises the Chargers and everything that they're about, and he calls them a fraudulent team, which is perhaps fair to say at times because you look at their record as far as who they've played, and it's been some lackluster teams. I think them beating the Bengals was interesting. But I'm going to take the Chargers here. I think they're legit. I think the Falcons are still trying to figure it out, and I think that their time to figure it out is starting to dwindle, and they have to figure it out, or else they're not going to be in the playoffs. But I like the Chargers here, my friend. So I'm going to take the Chargers. Scotty's taking the Falcons, and who are you going to take?
I'm going to go with you. I'm taking the Chargers. I think Harbaugh does a really good job of highlighting your weaknesses, and I think the Falcons right now have plenty of weaknesses to highlight. I think the Chargers' weakness is an offense that can consistently move the ball and can control the ball, and I don't think that's what the Falcons are built for right now. I don't think they're too mistake prone. They struggle to stay on schedule, and I think that's going to largely plague them in this game because I think the Chargers are going to do a lot of keep away in this game. Is what I think is going to happen. They're just going to kind of take the air out of the football, much like Harbaugh will want to do, and I think the way the Falcons plays right into it.
Okay. Let's go over to the Eagles at the Ravens. The Ravens are 3.5-point favorites. Alan, I'm going to let you start with this one.
Yep. This is 3.5. I don't love the hook the other way, but I think the Eagles struggle with like talent, and I think the Ravens have like talent. I think they tend to lean on teams that don't have the horses they do. I think you saw that against the Rams where they just kind of – it was close and they just kind of like leaned on them. The Ravens do amazing. They have a great run defense, which is going to force the Eagles to throw the ball more, and I think I like that matchup of forcing them to throw versus the Ravens' ability to kind of run the ball on the Eagles. Because if you look at the Rams, what they were doing with Kyren Williams, they were gashing them. I mean, there were plays to be had, and they turned it over once in the red zone and – kind of game script got away from them a little bit once they started playing from behind, but I like the Ravens.
This one's interesting to me. I'm excited for this game because it's going to be the matchup of the two kings. You got King Henry and then Saquon, who is quickly earning his crown as a potential MVP, like we talked about earlier. So this one's going to be fun for me. I think both teams are incredible teams. Both teams are playoff contending teams for sure. God, I want to take the Eagles. I really want to take the Eagles because
did I sell you on the Ravens?
I mean, you started to, and honestly, before when I picked this game and I started looking at it, I said I'm gonna take the Ravens here. But the Eagles are really interesting to me for everything that you just mentioned. As far as like, I do think the Ravens are going to try and stop Saquon, but can the Eagles effectively throw the ball? And that's really what this game is going to come down to for me is, can you get A.J. Brown involved consistently? Do you see Devontae get the ball? Is Dallas Goedert going to be involved? And I look at it and I'm like, offensively, I think the talent of the Eagles when they are humming is stronger than the offensive talent on the reverse side of the ball. So I'm gonna take the Eagles on this one.
Ooh, I like it.
I'm going to roll with the Eagles. And once again, I also do have to make some money moves here and diversify my profile here to try and climb this ladder. So there is a little bit of self-interest in that way. And Scotty's also taking the Eagles. So I don't know why. I can't speculate as to why. But I'm just going to say that he agrees with everything that I said. So next game up, Dolphins at Packers. The Packers are 3-point favorites. I'm taking the Packers, man. The Packers they're a great team. The Dolphins are struggling to figure it out offensively, even with Tua back. They're just I don't know what the identity is. We talked about identity earlier. You've got Tyreek Hill, who's been less than stellar compared to last year. Jalen Waddle's been largely absent. And then who in the hell is Jonnu Smith, and why is he the wide receiver one for the Dolphins these last few weeks? So it's their run game has not been nearly as electric as many had hoped. I think they struggle with that identity, and I think the Packers know who they are. And I think that Jordan Love's playing really great ball. They have talent everywhere on that offense. And I do believe that the Packers are going to cover that spread at 3 points.
Yep. I'm in the same boat largely because the temperature in Green Bay, the high is 30 on Sunday. So
and Dolphins don't play good in cold weather.
Easy win right there. I think Tua's going to be turnover prone. I like.
He's not going to be able to feel his hands.
Nope, I like Green
or
Bay
his brain
at home.
Scotty's also taking the Packers, so this is a clean sweep. If the Packers don't win, then it's a wash, and if they do, still a wash. All right, last game up, we have the Rams at the Saints. The Rams are 3-point favorites. Scotty's taking the Rams, which is hard to argue with because the Saints are the Saints. So Scotty's going to take the Rams. Alan, who are you taking?
I'm also going to take the Rams. I think the Saints still have a ton of problems. I think the Rams kind of showed me something even in that loss offensively. I like the way they're moving the ball. They have Kupp and Nakua back. They're starting to get lathered up again. That running game looked good. I mean, I don't know. Like, I don't like you can learn something in a loss, because I think that's like all coach speak. But I think for the Rams in this one, I think the Eagles have the MVP of the NFL, and that's what lost them the game. And you're not going to have the MVP of the NFL against the Saints. So I think the Rams are going to feel a little bit confident in their game plan and being able to manage this one and get the W. And so that's why I'm going to take the Rams, the field goal, even at the Saints.
Okay. I'm going to take the Saints. No, I'm just kidding. I'm not taking the Saints. I'm taking the Rams. Sean McVay's, I can't. I wanted to once again diversify that profile, but I do believe the Rams are going to win this, and I'm not looking to climb down the ladder any more than I already am. I have too much respect for this team. I know that they're not leading the charge right now. They're at third place in their division, but once again, as we talked about earlier, it's anybody's game. And the Rams are kind of, with Nakua back in the fold, I think that's a huge difference maker for them. And the Rams are just such a frisky team, and they have been for the last few years, where it's like any given Sunday, anything can happen. And and I don't ever expect the Rams to lose. And if the Rams win, I'm like in a game where they're not favored, I'm like, oh yeah, that tracks, because it's the Rams, and they're just a very well coached team that has they know what they want to do. Once again, that identity. So I'll take the Rams. And that's it. That's all the time we got. I will say before we get out of here, go check out LeatherBrainz.com. You have to go do that. You're going to get free daily content over there. We have a group of great writers that are producing
amazing
content
writers.
daily. Yes, they are doing an incredible job. And whether it's fantasy football information, team information, whether it be the Broncos or the Bears or what have you, there's always something to read over there daily. It's great content. Go check it out, LeatherBrainz.com. And also check out the Fantasy Brains. So if you like what we're doing over here, just chatting about football, the Fantasy Brains, the team over there is creating some great content for fantasy football. They're giving great advice. I've taken their advice a multitude of times, and it has won me weeks in fantasy football. So go check them out. And that's it. That's all I got, Alan. Anything else before we get out of here?
Nope. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody.
I appreciate you, brother. Yeah, have a wonderful, happy Thanksgiving.
Yes, sir.
Stay safe, eat some turkey, and start looking like me. I love you guys. We
are
out.
If you enjoyed this episode, make sure you tune into our new releases every week on your favorite podcast app. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, and check out LeatherBrainz.com for all of your fantasy football needs. And remember, Brainiacs, a championship should be more than a fantasy.